That's a good idea.
Okay, we are about to go live. We are audible. You can't see us yet, but we are here. Welcome to objc Retain. Thanks everyone for joining us. I don't really know why I put this intermediate screen in here. Let's just go to the chat. There we go. Right. Now we are live, faces and all. How are you doing, Stephen?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm all right. Thank you, Eugene19, joining us in the chat. Hello, Shish Kebab. Hello, Adrian. Yep, UG19. I did successfully up the stream to 1080p. We have so far in the pre-show, so we were live for about 10 minutes, just showing the loading screen and having a chat before we started. I dropped a total of 113 frames over that 10-minute period. I'm hoping that that's it, that there will be no more dropped frames. Because I think that was just like 4 seconds at the beginning while it was trying to get its shit together. So hopefully we're all right.
Awesome. Yeah, the that's 113 frames over a few minutes is not a big deal. I think we can work with that,
No,
and
absolutely.
hopefully that provides better font sizes for everyone watching.
Yeah. So
That's good.
when we get back into the programming, we will see that I've switched back to live BSD. The packages we were running for gnustep on Ambient were a bit out of date for what we wanted to do with AntiRSI. So I switched back to live step and just bumped the screen resolution up to up to 1080p really, 1920 by 1080.
There we go.
So I've also chucked the font size up. If anything needs changing, please let me know. We are here to educate, to entertain, and to inform. Is that right? Because educate and inform sound almost the same. It probably means something else.
I don't know. I think inform. I think inform is mansplaining,
Oh well, we're
and
definitely here for that.
well, yeah, and educate is probably something different entirely.
Right. That's splaining.
Right. Splaining, mansplaining,
Yeah. So
and
before
entertaining.
exactly splaining, mansplaining, and entertaining. That's great. That's going to be our tagline now. Inform equals narc. Yeah, that's a good point. And hello, Matthew Scala. Yeah, so there was
All right.
a band in the 90s in the UK called Supergrass, which was named after, the person who rats out so many other people that they basically become a police employee.
All right.
So
All
before we
right.
went live, Stephen was asking me about the Patreon that I set up, and I thought it would be a good idea to talk about that on the stream so that you all know about it and can offer whatever support you like. So I'm going to, using the excitement that is getting TalkSoup working with Twitch, I'm going to link that Patreon in the stream chat. So neither of us we don't take any sponsorship on the stream. We run a couple of streams. I know a few of you I recognise from our other stream as well, which is Dos Amigans, which will be tomorrow at 1900 UTC. And both of us do quite a lot of sort of professional software engineering outreach of various forms, like blogging, podcasting, live streams, conference talks, and in order, we. Not, I'm not going to speak for Stephen. Actually, I'm going to speak for myself. I don't expect payment for that, but it is appreciated. As sort of thanks for the effort that goes into that and the time, particularly that goes into doing those things. So I set up a Patreon, and it's going quite well. I mean, given that I basically launched it, blogged it, and then mentioned it on Dos Amigans last week, and have literally only just mentioned it on Obscene Retain, as far as I remember. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I've got a small number of patrons. I would say that I'm at about €25 a month already. Which, if we forget ridiculous like software engineering money, which I'm not on anyway because I work at a university which is not for profit and has famously poor salaries and working conditions. So taking that into account, let's forget professional salaries and think about sort of like living wage. And a living wage in the UK is something like £15 an hour. So I'm at about paying for 90 minutes of living per month for doing all of the extra things I do that is professional engagement with the software engineering community, which is it's very welcome. It's a decent a decent chunk of my time accounted for.
Yeah, it's actually we talked about not having much to talk about in the pre-show, but this is a thing that I sort of thought about, have been thinking about, because one of the ways when I started in the software industry in the late 90s, there were still jobs that I think we eventually called fellowships.
Right.
In the late 90s, Xerox PARC still existed, and the holy grail of the fellowship job was... Oh, Stephen is lagging a bit.
I expect my computer is doing some extra bandwidth and throwing all those extra P's around. It's got an extra 360 more P's to put into your screens and into your devices.
Right. I hope it's still audible. So so in the late 90s and into the early 2000s, we still had sort of this idea of fellowship, and one of the people that I sort of looked up to at the time, and still do in a lot of ways, definitely, is Alan Cox. Alan Cox, for those of you that don't know, was sort of Linus Torvalds 2IC for a lot of years. I sort of credit him with legitimizing Linux. He took it from bedroom side project and made it and made it a professional software project insofar as it became.
Yeah, there is a phrase which might be in that, I can't remember. Matthew Scala will know if it's in that Geeks, Mops and Sociopaths article. There's one person is a nutter and two are a movement. And
right.
That's definitely true. You need you can't just go in a different direction. Alan Kay had this idea of the pink and the blue planes. You can't just go onto the blue plane and say, right, this is the better way to work. You actually need other people to come along and say, this does work really well, we should be doing this. And Alan Cox was one of those people on Linux. Yeah,
and eventually, through the Linux IPOs and the complete craziness that was happening in the early 2000s, there were a lot of people who basically found themselves with jobs where their job was to do, to show up, basically.
Yeah.
Or in some cases, we're paying you so that you don't work for our competitors type thing. And I always, in the early parts of my career, and I held on to this belief for a lot longer than it was true. I felt that, if I just focus and work really hard to be the best at what I do as much as I can, that someday I might find myself in one of those fellowship positions where people just sort of rely on what's in my brain, and I can deliver it in whatever way I can care to. And Matthew Scala, who is one of my longest friends, I guess. He's certainly not one of my oldest friends. We've known each other since I was very young, and he told a story which he wrote on his blog called "Take It to Strathco." And Matthew, you can I really like that link, and so if you wanna paste the link into the chat, I'll appreciate that, because it sort of describes the job that I thought I was working towards. I didn't know if I wanted to work. I at the time, I definitely didn't want to work at Microsoft, and I think I wanted to work at Red Hat, and I think at one point Alan Cox's job was Red Hat Fellow, was his job title. And so his job was to show up and do the things that he was going to do anyways. And because of capitalism, those jobs don't exist anymore. Everybody has to focus on impact, and everyone, and I find it slightly offensive that we have people in our industry that have contributed so much, um, like, Ken fucking Beck and Ward Cunningham and Rebecca Worfsbrock and Alan Kay and people like that. That still, Alan Kay probably doesn't have to because he's old enough that it doesn't matter. But these folks, I I find it almost offensive that they have to look for employment sometimes to pay their bills. And I always thought that the fellowship idea was a great idea. We just, have make sure that this person has enough to live so that they can exercise their brain. And over the last few years, I realized that that doesn't exist anymore, and that I have to start creating it for myself. But it kind of does exist. It exists on Patreon, um, where you have a place where people can say, "I like what you do, and I want to contribute to the idea of you doing more of that." And I think that it's an interesting thing. I think that it's generationally, it's a thing that people are very open to. In previous generations, probably not so much. But I'm a patron of Amiga Bills, and also of a couple of my favorite bands. And I join those Patreons not because I have even read what the rewards are, because I don't care about the rewards. I just want to tell somebody with my wallet, I appreciate what you do and I want to encourage you to do more. Matthew points out that universities existed to create that kind of job, and they're failing at it now, and that's definitely something that's also kind of timely. GitHub sponsorship, UG19 points out, helps support open source folks. I do have one bit of apprehension about this, because about those kinds of things, because that is still, I'm paying you to do this thing, or very often it's, I'm paying you to do this thing for me. And in content creation, I don't want to tell people what I'm paying them for. I don't want, um I do want, on this stream and on the other stream, for people to say, I like this and I would like to see more of this kind of thing because I find it valuable to me personally. And I'll definitely, we will both definitely, do the things that people enjoy. But I don't like the idea of, I will give you this much money if you do this thing specifically for me. And in open source, that happens an awful lot. There were a few famous Patreons and Kickstarters in the Ruby community. And the ones that I'm thinking of actually failed spectacularly, where somebody said, if this Kickstarter gets enough money, I'm going to do this thing. And then they never did the thing.
So there was, I think, the earliest example of that. And that, yeah, I mean, there's a difference between, like, that is basically an advance. That's not patronage. That is a record label saying, you are Pink Floyd, go out and record a new album. Not a music fan saying, you are Pink Floyd, carry on being Pink Floyd.
Yes.
But I think one of the earliest examples, which I think is, sort of shows the beginning of the sort of App Store gold rush. But this was well before that, actually. This was about 2005. There was a competition called My Dream App, and these developers and I can't remember whether it was VCs or business angels. Might have been business angels. I don't think there was a whole lot of money. It was like tens of thousands of dollars. They put up a competition for people to submit app ideas and to vote on the ones they wanted to see. And the idea was that the winning app would get made, and that this would suit everybody, because like the competition winner would win a competition, and there was some prize, but there's also the kudos of having designed, basically come up with the feature request for winning app. There was the developers got to work on an app that people actually wanted to use, and then it would be sold, and so the entrepreneurs, the VCs or angels or whatever they were, would make some return on it. And I think there were two awards. One was basically like a super general version of Yahoo Pipes. It was like, I've got information coming in from all these different web services, and I want a Mac desktop app that lets me consume those and interoperate them. And I forget what the second was, but neither of them ever got made. And the
Mhm.
page stayed up for like 7 or 8 years after the competition ran. And every so often I would like check back, and I would tweet, and I would say, "Let's see if my dream app has been made yet." And of course, it never
Right.
it never had. And so like the reason for that is that that's just a completely ridiculous like feature request. I want an app where like any web service I can think of using, you can make interoperable on my desktop with it through a common interface. Like there is no
Right.
there. You can build that. Of course, you can build it. It's software. You can't build it in reasonable time. You certainly can't
Hmm.
build it on a few tens of thousands of dollars of VC money, um, and that is the danger of those sort of Kickstarter things. But a Patreon, like there are various levels of commitment. Some like a lot of sort of artists will say you'll get early access to the things I create. I think of someone like what's the name? Is it Jeff Jakes who does the questionable content uh, comic?
I
Um,
I don't remember. Yeah.
uh,
Early access is a valuable thing that doesn't take away from or add or sort of add to the burden of creation either.
mm.
Hmm.
And
Yep.
sometimes, they'll put extra sort of, just like put up rough cuts. That's the thing that like the podcasters do, right? Is they say if you are a member, then you can listen to the live stream, and everybody else has to wait for us to edit it. So you will get to hear things that we didn't say, a lot of which won't be worth hearing, but like some of which will be.
Hmm.
And again, that's just sort of giving people a perk and like making them feel sort of in on it. But then a lot of people don't. So relevant to this stream, Greg Casamento, who's the chief maintainer of gnustep, runs a Patreon where he basically says, "I want to work on gnustep. If you pay me, it will help me work on gnustep." And
Hmm.
he doesn't sort of offer like, "I will implement this class if there isn't like a tier which is one Objective C class per member, or there isn't like
Right.
a tier that is you get to see my pull requests before I push them to GitHub or anything like that. It's just I want to maintain GNU step. I want to I want to be paid for doing it.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of this in my mind is sort of being freed up for the creativity. I mean, as when I have sort of more financial security, then my creativity increases. I'm writing a lot.
I'm afraid that Stephen has just completely frozen, so we'll never find out what he is writing. Ah,
Oh, the
okay, you dropped out at
the
I'm writing a lot, but now you're
whoops.
back.
Sorry. Yeah, I'm watching the connection quality go up and down here. And so yeah, I'm writing a lot. I'm not necessarily publishing a lot, but I'm writing a lot more because I don't feel terribly constrained financially right now. But especially when I lived in Canada, I was working constantly, trading my time for money. I had no time to create new things. One of the things that I created in the Ruby community was a behavior development tool called RSpec, and that was a fun contribution, and I think it contributed a lot, especially to Ruby. Anytime that you see a test framework that has the word should in it, that's kind of my fault. But I did that 10 years ago, 10 or 15 years ago or more now. And I haven't really had a lot of energy to create more since because I've been too busy sort of, supporting my family and trading my time for money. When you have a Patreon with perks or the GitHub sponsors or things like that, it feels a lot more like trading time for money than it does being freed up to do creative things. And that, I think, is a thing that we're missing in modern society, that people are not freed up to do creative things often enough, or well enough. And I think that Patreon is and again, I have issues with Patreon because it is a for-profit company, and so on and so on and so on, but it is at least a platform where people can do this kind of thing, and I would like to see more of it in the future. um, it's it's the kind of thing where basically my idea of a lot of the Patreon stuff is, if you like the kinds of things that I'm doing now and would like me to do more, then you can contribute to my Patreon. And I think that that is a really great model. Um, but I mean, of course, it could all go away with universal basic income, or universal basic services, or things like that. But in the current system, I think that the Patreon model has the ability to work. One of the things that somebody that I follow, who sort of introduced me to some of these ideas, uh, said, I deliberately don't put perks on the Patreon levels because that makes it trading time for money. And I just want people to say, you know what, I like what you do and I want to see what you do next. And I think that's a really great model. And it's something that you otherwise would have to sacrifice an awful lot for. And it's certainly something that I'm trying to set up my life personally in ways that don't yet involve a thing like Patreon. I think I will probably also go down the Patreon road at some point. Um, but I've sort of tried to solve this myself by buying a ridiculously cheap house and lowering my expenses enough that I just don't need very much to feel financially secure, so that I can create more things. But also, I'm not sure that I would necessarily create a lot of computer things. One of the things that I'm thinking about doing now is video recordings of tractor repairs, which probably nobody in this group would find interesting, but there are a lot of people out there that would, and it's a creative endeavor that I would enjoy. So there are things like that as well. Um, and it's right now, we don't do this for the money, because there is none or little to none in it. We do this for enjoyment, and but it's always nice when people express their appreciation in different ways, and not everyone has something to contribute, and not and coming here and contributing in the chat and talking with us and helping and learning something is also a valued contribution as well. But I think that this is a really nice, it's a turning point. On a sort of the final bit that I want to think about to tie it together was, the musician that I'm thinking of uh, talked about in, when he was touring, he before his music was online, somebody came to the merch table, and society had sort of decided at that point, this is the time of Napster, that music should be free and you should pay for the live show and you should buy the merch, and that's how musicians should sustain themselves. And he said, and he told a story about how somebody showed up at the merch table and said, "Hey, I've already downloaded all your music, so I don't need to buy any albums and none of your I don't really like any of the t-shirts, but I just want to tell you that I appreciate what you're doing." And he said it was kind of a weird. And then the guy got in a BMW 7 Series and drove away. And he said it was kind of weird that this guy who had basically not contributed to any of the creation, and could have, uh, didn't. And he said he had a lot of bad feelings about that whole music should be free thing for a while. But now, with Patreon and things like that, he's finding a lot of support. He said that the current generation of people strongly feel like they should support the things that they like because they know that will go away. And I think that that is definitely a positive thing that is happening in society, really, that people feel the need to make sure that the things that you love don't go away. I did this a lot with a DNA Lounge, a nightclub that I haven't yet had a chance to go to, but I want to make sure it's there once we're allowed to travel. And so I encouraged a bunch of my friends to buy pizza from DNA Pizza, and I offered to pay for it several times, and did several times, just to make sure that the things that I want to still exist. And I think that that's a really nice thing. So, yeah. So if you like the kinds of things that Graham does, you should consider contributing to his Patreon. And if you like the kinds of things that I do, then when I have one in the future, maybe you'll consider that as well. And if you like showing up and talking shit in the chat with us, that's awesome too.
So one of the best moments recently in if you don't support this thing, it will go away, was Metallica's live stream on Blizzcon, which was they did a live streaming concert as part of Blizzard's game development conference that was actually sort of game ecosystem conference really, that was streamed on Twitch, and Twitch replaced the music with like generic lift music to avoid it being copy striked, because there was a significant chance if you play live music on a stream that the copyright holder will issue a DMCA takedown and the stream will have to go down. And the reason that those DMCA takedowns exist is because of Metallica. So Metallica, right. Like 1999 or 2000 Metallica managed to to take down Metallica 2021's Metallica stream for having Metallica music in it.
That's fantastic. I do not support Metallica, and I did not support them, and their shit got taken down, so the system works.
Nice. Just before we go on to switch to actually doing some Objective-C development, the thing that I have seen that is, the sort of for-profit version of the fellowship role that you're talking about is the engineer grade 8 in a Silicon Valley company. So that'd be an E8 at Facebook. It'd be probably a engineering fellow or principal engineer or something at Google. There'd be a similar technical fellow at ARM. They'd be called similar role at Microsoft, where essentially you've got all of the freedom of deciding what you want to do, but all of the commitment of the annual or semi-annual performance summary cycle and having demonstrated that you've done it. So if you're ever wondering why does each Silicon Valley company invent its own build system every 6 months, or its own JavaScript front end framework every 6 months, or its own compiled to LLVM language every 6 months, it's because they've got an E8 who can't think of a project to do but has to ship something within the next 6 months to avoid being fired. And so,
right.
they're on ridiculous money. They're probably as highly paid as a divisional director in the company is. Given fairly light supervision, because they, what you were saying before, their role is to not work for their competitors. But they're still managed to the same management scheme that they have to use for 21-year-old Stanford graduates who don't know how a company works, because
right.
Because those 21-year-old Stanford graduates are also running the management side of the company. So right. you end up with, and there was a joke at Facebook. I worked there a very long time ago now. And it's about one E8 in particular, so I'm not going to name them or talk about the projects because that would be unfair. But this person would be looking to to turn off some part of our infrastructure so that they could rewrite it from scratch because they need a new project. And like clockwork, every 6 months something would be switched off so that it could be rewritten.
When I worked at Neo4j, I definitely did not have one of those E8 positions. I was, hired as, a software engineer, and I did, various software engineering things. I worked on a lot of different parts of the database, and that was fine. And it was, they got value from me. But the most valuable things that I did were the things that I did because I loved those things. I worked a lot on improving the packaging in Debian and the Docker images, not because I like Docker, but because I cared about, my care was in how do people feel when they use our product. And so I spent my spare time doing those things. And everyone agreed these are very valuable, and I said, good, so why don't we make those my job? No, because that's not a job.
Mm.
And it wasn't until I was in my 3 month notice period to quit where I could basically just do whatever I wanted. And I did those things. And then as soon as I left, they said, oh, actually, this really needs to be a job because we don't have somebody here who
Yeah.
cares about it anymore.
Yeah.
And so that is actually now a 3 person team when it was something that I did. And I'm going to say it, I did it better part time in, in and around the other things that I was working on. And that was the kind of thing where, in that specific instance, Neo4j would have been better off to just pay me and not give me a job description because I would have done really important stuff anyways. I think that we have a lot of these cases where, if you just, hire good people and get the fuck out of the way, I think is a really good way to do that. And, but for reasons that I don't even claim to understand or care about, that just doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, I think there's generally, and going back to Matthew Scala's point about universities, just
Mm-hmm.
generally that management has become a lot more risk averse. A lot of these places now, so that's financial risk from the perspective of the the commercial sector .com crash, the banking sector crash, well, which was really sort of fintech led crash of 2007 2008. The ongoing subprime mortgages thing, the coronavirus, basically like the capitalist machinery no longer works very well, which means that there's a lot more sort of retrenching, a lot less risk taking from a business
Someone should have written
perspective.
about capitalist stuff falling apart.
Yeah, there should be like some kind of big 3 volume textbook on how this is inevitable and due to the internal contradictions of the system. We wait for that book to be written. But and from a university's perspective, like a university's entire point is, uh, and like we've got to realise that universities have evolved. Like their primary form of prestige and income at the moment is research. Well, Oxford only gave out its first research degree in 1920, and that was after the American universities had started doing it, but not long after. So it's like a 20th century. The research university is very much a sort of 20th century idea. Before that, it was gentlemen of independent means. It was well, not just gentlemen, but typically, but people who had enough money that they didn't have to worry about what they were doing, who could go out and like discover electricity or write a load of maths or invent computers or whatever it was they did. Um, so the university's job as a research establishment has always been to assume the risk of the of the research project. It's been to agree to
Mm-hmm.
pay your salary before you've got the research grant money coming in that will actually like underwrite that salary. It is to agree to buy a bunch of equipment and buildings and office space and like desks and things like that before you have demonstrated that your research is going to it's like support or justify the purchase of those buildings and desks and space and all of that kind of stuff. So essentially, they are there um, to smooth out the purchase cycle or the sort of grant awards cycle, so that
Mm-hmm.
you can know that you've got a job over the course of your like up and downy funding. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but these days they are so risk averse. Like my contract is only runs until April, not because I haven't got a load more work to do, but because until I've demonstrated that work will tie me up for at least 12 months, they're not willing to extend my contract for another 12 months. Um,
Yeah.
now, the contract of like one of the 6 people in Oxford University who knows how to write software is basically never in question. We get about like I would say about 20 times as much work comes in. If we were to estimate all the work that came in, or at least all of the project time allocated, it would be 20 times the number of salaries we spend. So you'd have 20 person years of work for every person year of person. There is no question that we couldn't like double the team and still be snowed under and still justify paying for all of those people.
Mhm.
And that's not like that's not Silicon Valley double the team because we fucked up and we've introduced another set of problems we need another engineering team to fix. That's double the
Right.
team because there are twice as many problems that we could be solving that other people already have than we are capable of doing. And
Mm.
nonetheless, the university management has become like so risk averse and so fixated on seeing outcomes, on seeing like whether it's publications or whether it's patents or whether it's like commercial transfers or startup companies. They've got to see where those are coming from before they'll commit to the funding, and that makes it very hard to do research because if you know what the
Mhm.
outcomes are going to be, then what you're doing isn't research, it's development. So like they've become
Right.
development institutions.
Yeah, in Canada, I know that universities differ based on where you are. In Sweden, um, the degree program for software developers and that kind of thing is definitely just this is how you enter the job market, and they're very
Mm.
focused on getting people into the job market. But I know Matthew and I have talked about this many times over the years privately, so I'm not going to share specific details, but it's it's almost as though universities exist in Canada. They're just places where you go to buy your degree,
Right.
and Matthew has explained to me many times about experiences that he's had where it is very much in service of you are in service of your customers that are purchasing
Mm.
degrees from
Mm.
you rather than doing other things like research. Another point Matt points out in chat that Terry Pratchett's Wizarding University is an instructive depiction of this. I know that you are a massive fan and former acquaintance of the man with the floppy hat.
Exactly. I was the lead developer on the Discworld iPad app in some number of years ago, whenever that came out. Well, actually, I did it the year before it came out. Obviously,
Right.
I wasn't the lead developer once it shipped.
Right. But I really like Matthew's point that it mostly it mostly exists to keep wizard type people busy so they don't make trouble, but also occasionally to keep reality from falling apart. And I think that in the software industry we would benefit from this, from having sort of I talk to Kent fucking Beck and Ward Cunningham fairly infrequently, but often enough that it's I hear about it when they're looking for a new job or looking for a new way to pay the bills, and I always just find that kind of offensive. We kind of want people like that have invented all of the things that we rely on to not have to worry about paying their bills, so they can keep reality from falling apart and also make it better for future generations.
Yeah, and I think the university model works well there because you want people, like so. Ward Cunningham is working on his like federated wiki thing. You want to basically like give him a warm place and 3 meals a day and say like do that and tell us how it's going, and then
Mm-hmm.
there are a bunch of you know like the idea of the innovation tokens. There are a bunch of innovations that are being done in day-to-day products that really shouldn't be done in day-to-day products. So you also want somewhere to keep the students out of the real world and let them have their fun creating more containers and customers in their cube clusters,
Right.
but like also give them internships where they're just making things on the JVM that just fucking work.
Yeah, I mean, we see this in every. I mean, everybody who's worked in professional software development sees sort of we call it not invented here syndrome, the NIH, and we see that everywhere. We see people reinventing things that already exist just because they want to create something new rather than use something else that works.
Hmm.
My brain is a little bit more I had a friend, and this sort of ties into, I guess, anti-RSI and other things. I think I mentioned this previously that I had a colleague point out that he found it interesting that I only work on other people's code
Hmm.
because I think that there's value in learning how to work with other people's code and bring it into the future, and that's what we're doing here. And this is probably a good time for the intro.
Yeah, so I guess I'm responsible for the intro this time around. I'm going to switch.
Sure.
This represents a record. Typically, it takes us an hour to get into switching to the computer. We've done it in 40 minutes. That's not too bad. So we are showing how to use Objective-C on free software platforms by doing it and by helping others to do it. Um, there is no like overall goal to this stream other than to demonstrate that there is still a home for Objective-C, even if like particular vendors are no longer interested in it, because there is this community of open source and free software developers who are maintaining projects and who are providing space for Objective-C code to live and thrive. Our short-term goal is that Stephen is very interested in an app called AntiRSI, which he explained on the stream last week, so I'm just going to summarize that. It is an app that forces you to take a break from your computer every so often, which helps people with RSI because to working in a fixed sort of configuration, skeletal configuration that is, can be either fatiguing or painful, and so if you are reminded to take breaks by your computer, then you will get into less trouble. This app is a Cocoa app. It's an open source Cocoa app that we started last week. And admittedly, I've changed the computer we're running on since last week so I could support the 1080p stream. But I have kind of got us back to where we were, I think. We cloned this project from GitHub. We put all of the source into Project Center, and we hit the build button, and we got an error. That sidetracks the fact that we spent most of the stream trying to get it to work with a project called Build Tool, which is supposed to parse and build projects from Xcode files that just didn't work on this Xcode file. So I filed a bug in GitHub. There's been no activity on that yet, but that sort of made us give up on Build Tool and switch to building a Project Center project. So I'm now going to do a really fancy camera transition so that I can look at the developer screen. Amiga Bill makes it look so professional. So for those of you who don't know, who don't follow the DOS Amiga stream, Amiga Bill is Bill Winters. He is a camera operator and camera director for various like Netflix, Broadway, for various things. And so his stream involves some very 6 different camera setups and like VHS cameras and video toasters and chroma key and all this kind of stuff. I just pick up my camera and move it from one monitor to another. So if I can find my mouse pointer, I think we might both be controlling the mouse pointer at the moment.
I hope I'm not, because my mouse is not in the window. And you just started the talk soup again.
Yeah, I did not do that, actually.
Oh, huh. All right.
Oh, wrong keyboard. So I think that might just be a TeamViewer thing then. Right. So yeah, TalkSoup is now doing... Did you just...
I didn't do anything. Hands off.
No, sorry, when I say you, I mean I was talking to the computer.
Oh.
Oh, that might actually be that TalkSoup.
Okay.
All right. Well, I can open a new terminal so we don't have to deal with that. There we go. But what I was going to do was open Project Center. That at least has worked. Open the AntiRSI project and build it. So this is pretty much where we got to last time.
Mm-hmm. And it's still saying unknown type name NS date picker, which we found is in the latest stuff.
Yeah, so it could be that the version of gnustep that is on here is too early to have that. Is there some kind of package info or describe?
I think it is package info. Yep,
Nice.
there it is, and that is version.
Good question.
Scroll up to the nearly the very top. I think there it is. 0.27.0 from 20 installed in 2021. That doesn't say when it was created.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
So
I don't know whether Ultra is going to work for us at the moment. Been having bad luck with
doesn't
Ultra on
appear
this
to
computer.
be.
No. I know that the gnustep GUI package is not well maintained on FreeBSD. In fact, it doesn't have a maintainer. So if anyone out there on the chat would like to get involved, a good thing to do would be to take up maintainership of the gnustep project, the gnustep ports in FreeBSD. Upstream definitely works because I think David Chisnell, one of the gnustep maintainers, uses FreeBSD, and the CI includes FreeBSD, so it won't be an onerous task of like trying to work out how to get this weird system D codes to build on FreeBSD. It will be taking code that definitely compiles and runs and packaging it.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm going to do, Otter just didn't work, did it? And I don't have another browser on it.
It did not.
Would you like to look up what version we're on? Well, what I'm going to do is just check it out.
Okay, so the latest version of libs GUI is 0.28.
Okay, so it's not that far behind. It's 0.27 we had.
Right. So, if we... you're checking it out. Perfect.
Yep.
And I'm going to look over here.
I may not have
see
all/any of the build dependencies.
Right. But we'll find that out pretty quickly. I think we might need libs base there.
Well, I definitely have gnustep base installed, but I have whichever package it has.
Right. So, libs base. Oops. And libs base version is current version is 1.27.
Okay, well that actually worked. The configure worked anyway. Okay, so it's 1.27 you said, and this is 1.26.
Yes, and that's 1.26.
So it's not that far behind at all.
Okay.
Let's see
right.
where the GUI builds. Okay, that
Apple
is
event descriptor, and that is new in base.
Oh, okay, right.
I think. Yep. So we will need libs base then.
Okay. Woo, mouse doing weird
Let's
things.
see here. Which one was that? Descriptor.
Oh, this. There we go.
Okay, so NS Apple event descriptor was added. Oops. I'm hitting the wrong button here. Yeah, it was added in, let's see here, very recently. No, December 10th of 2019, but definitely after that version. So if we update them, we'll be good.
So does NS Apple Event Descriptor actually do anything? Because I didn't think that gnustep had AppleScript support at all, for the fairly obvious reason that none of the operating systems it supports have AppleScript support.
I think I'm just going to go back here. I'm looking at it now, and it says raw. Let's see here. It exports a class, NS Apple Event Descriptor, which I will go back. to source foundation. Nope, support foundation. Let's see. Nope, that is not it either. Let's see here. And, oh, of course. Let's see here. NS Apple Event Descriptor 15 months ago is just an empty class.
Okay.
So that is... So it exists, but it does not do anything.
Yeah.
I don't know what the implementation is supposed to look like for NS Apple Event Descriptor.
So an Apple event is not that complex. Apple script is based on this open scripting architecture, OSA, and an event has like a name which is a 4-character code and a suite name which is a 4-character code, and references to other objects which are essentially...
That's for building your suite solutions.
Exactly. I could imagine that there are a bunch of ways that you could build an AppleScript-like thing on gnustep. One is that you could use Guile, and you could just have like a single trampoline function in Guile that is the sort of send Apple event on one side and receive Apple event on the other side. The other is to use Etoile's language kit, which is the thing that's built on their Smalltalk is built out of, and that would just let you like take a bunch of code and translate it down to a few Objective-C message sends. So you just have Objective-C like dispatch for the events and things. But the question would be, would anybody actually want to use that? Obviously there are Mac applications that are open source and that have AppleScript support, but would gnustep having its own sort of scripting architecture be a blessing or a curse?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I was when I was a more, I don't know, I guess devoted Mac user, and I am unfortunately sliding back into that because it's convenient. I wrote a lot of AppleScript for a lot of different things,
right?
But I'm not sure how much of that would necessarily translate. I guess if I was running all of the same applications because this stream is a wild success and everybody ports all their shit, then maybe my AppleScript would work.
For some reason, pressing enter it just hadn't updated the screen for some reason.
Yeah, the screen updates over TeamViewer are coming in at about half a frame per second, I think. So it is a bit, it's a bit lacking.
But yeah, and now it claims to have errored on that file, but also gone past it. I don't know whether whether that is just like, I think TeamViewer is messing with with the UI, and I think it's just actually pasted a bunch of output from further up into the terminal.
Yeah, I'm being very careful about where my mouse is, so I'm. So that
I don't think it's you. I think we had this the last time we tried to use TeamViewer and FreeBSD. So that inside baseball for the people watching, going, well, why have you got this this mess of a system? Why don't you just pick something that works? So this operating system that you can see on the screen, which is over there, is called LiveStep, and it's basically someone created a script for the Fury BSD live CD packaging tool that installs Window Maker, and it's just pasted a bunch of...
That was a paste, yeah.
Okay. I'll wait for the keyboard to catch up. They did this thing that installs gnustep and window maker and stuff onto a FreeBSD live CD. It is the most up to date like turnkey installation of gnustep we can find, but the person behind it didn't get much traction at the time that they created the image, and so has moved on to what's it called now? Is it like Simple BSD or Hello System or something? Hello System.
I don't. Yeah, that sounds familiar. I
Which
don't remember.
is basically FreeBSD plus KDE skinned to look like Mac OS X. And what they're trying to do is to make a nice usable operating system or operating environment for people who want to come out of like the corporate platforms but don't like the purple that comes with Ubuntu or whatever.
I'm not seeing any updates in TeamViewer.
No, that's because the screen isn't updating. Well, or rather,
Oh, now it is.
so I can drag the window, but my keyboard commands haven't got as far as the thing yet. I don't know whether that is. I'm going to create a new terminal window and see if that's any better.
There we go. I bet there was a like an ANSI, like a color code or something that hit the scroll lock or something
Right? Yeah, maybe.
in that paste.
So
Okay.
what was I? Oh yeah. So we were using like basically the most up to date environment that we could find, but we haven't had very good luck with like remote access to it. So my setup is obviously the usual sort of home network stuff. That means that showing there we go, that has done. Showing a VNC server over the internet is a recipe for disaster. So we haven't wanted to do that. And what we've got is like a remote support tool. This is this that is running in a VM on a Windows computer, and we're using a remote support tool to so that Stephen can control it. However, that seems to mess with the particularly the mouse events, and basically make it kind of frustrating experience for both of us. So what we tried last week was this is a Rock Pro, is it, or is it a Rock 60? This is a Rock 64, which is very similar to a Raspberry Pi. It was a bit of a beefier CPU, but basically is a fully open source Raspberry Pi type thing, and that's got Armbian, which is based on Debian Stretch.
I think so. Yeah.
It has
That's current Debian.
Yeah, but it has well old gnustep packages.
Yeah.
Like, well old.
Yeah.
And the collection of dependencies to get up to date, you can't use their LLVM to build like the libobc runtime. So
Right.
you have to install out. You have to build LLVM from source before you can build the Objective C runtime from source before you can build new gnustep. And I spent the 2 days of trying to get LLVM to build and leaving the build overnight and discovering that it had failed in the morning, and gave up on that. But controlling that box over the Tinternet using the open source DW service was really easy. So there's our rock and our hard plays.
Yes.
The next thing I could do is I could just install gnustep in WSL and or even in MSys64 and just do it on Windows, and that would still demonstrate that we've got a free software platform and a cross-platform Objective-C environment. But I am so shit at using Windows that would be a frustrating to get in my way.
Yeah, I tried to use WSL. I know a lot of people that I trust and respect who actually moved on to using Windows with WSL as their
Hmm.
sort of main machine. But I have not been able. I was not able to get it to work when I was forced to use Windows for various
Hmm.
things. So I don't think it's an entirely easy thing to get working. There are a few other things we're experiencing. For those of you that followed the other stream at all, I think we were probably half a dozen streams in before we really got it well oiled. Um, and okay, so now we don't have the error, and we know that application services H doesn't exist in GNU-step.
Yeah. So our
And we did talk about this off stream, and we decided to save it for the stream.
okay. Yeah. So
Let me pull up.
do you remember what we said?
I'm going to find it right now. Uh,
Excellent.
it was something to do with the PID finding,
So I'm
and
going to put a poll in. I say when I say put a poll, what I'm going to do is ask people in chat. Um, would you be happy with seeing a Windows desktop for GNU-step development, or would you rather we try and uh, solve it on Linux, or carry on with LiveStep? Do you have a preference for those things? Obviously, like the lazy thing to do would be to use a Mac, but then we're not really using GNU-step because, like, you get the
right,
GNU-step extensions, you get like, all of the libraries that aren't, uh, you know, Foundation or AppKit, but you're using Apple's version of the main libraries. So Eugene19 says I
yes,
don't mind Windows or Mac desktop. Um,
well that's good.
maybe
So
at some point in the future we should just do a stream which is let's have a look at GNU Step on Windows, because that is that is useful. I'm going to sound like a twat content marketer now, but that is valuable content in itself. Um, and then
yeah,
let's
so
just like
yeah,
decide whether we want to kind of do that full time.
right.
Sorry, carry on.
Um, yeah, I'm just looking at this thing here. Um, from the last stream, we found that application services is used. Actually, this is valuable content. Um, the usage, the application services
Hold on
is used.
before you go on. This is valuable
Oh,
content. Please like and subscribe. Okay, please continue.
right. I forgot. So the reason application services is used is because when AntiRSI shows the window, it um, before it starts a work break, it wants to capture all of your mouse and keyboard input so that it can reset the timer if you violate the work break. So you are forced to stop touching your shit while the work break is up. It uses application services for this to get the what is the front process and stores the PID of the front process, whatever you had running before AntiRSI started the break, so that when it finishes the break, it can bring that process back to the front. And it doesn't use Cocoa APIs for this. It uses application services, which I think is actually Carbon,
Yes, it is.
um, to catch the PIDs and stuff. So we do have to remove that feature. This is one of the porting things that you have to do. We have to remove that feature and then re-add it later in a cross-platform way. And we discussed last week. I literally just went back to our chat history from 1 week ago, and I said that set front process has been deprecated, and that's one of the functions that we use from application services. And you're supposed to use NS application activation and NS running application, which gnustep has empty implementations of, which will work in a cross-platform way because of the way that we've talked before about how Objective-C works. If you send a message to a thing, um, it will send that message, and as long as we are not relying on that message having been sent successfully and the return value for it, then it's going to be fine. NS running application is also not yet in gnustep, and that would be we probably have to integrate deeply with the operating system to get that, and there are other issues and things. So
Well,
what
I
we
think
have
what
to
we
do.
found was that
Mhm.
he.
uh,
Sorry about that. I pressed the wrong button because I've got two keyboards in front of me, and I pressed the wrong keyboard. What I was going to do Adrian B also says no problem, and seeing it on Windows might be interesting. So okay, next week we will do a GNU Step on Windows episode. That may not
Sure.
be our long-term setup, but I think it would be interesting for just to show that it is a thing.
And I think it's valuable for the community to be able
Yeah.
to show it in multiple ways, and also make sure that we are, identifying at least, if not fixing, the problems between. So I think what we can do in the short term is remove the include for application services or comment it out.
Yeah, I think just
Build again.
I think what we discovered last time was that NS running application does exist.
Yes.
And it just yes, it does. And it just isn't very it is a stub. So that means that if we did switch, I've just pasted a load of crap again. If we did switch the implementation to use it, then it would at least be a bunch of no ops. We don't want to do that from here because we don't know whether it would work.
Right. So this will be something that I do separately on my Mac. But for now, what we can do is remove the include and then just comment out the lines that error because those functions don't exist. Because we don't care about the store the existing application thing. We only, we care about it, but we do not have, we know we will not get an implementation of it. So I have to update AntiRSI to use the NS running application APIs. And I should do that off stream. And then, there we go. Aha. Now we're getting
used to
those key events.
And I remember this discussion actually because we discussed what should NS running application do on gnustep because it doesn't make sense for it to just find other gnustep applications because if you're on Windows you might only be using one gnustep application. You might only be using AntiRSI. And everything else you have is like a GDI app or a Win32 app or a .NET app or whatever.
Yes.
And if you're on Linux...
And on Unix, it's hard. Yeah, because we don't know... we would have to... I think we would have to get it through X or Wayland to find out what the currently focused application is.
Yeah. So, we wondered whether, So it'd have to be platform specific. You'd have to do... Well, you can rely on NS running application working on a Mac. On Windows... I guess there's a task management API. I don't know what I'm talking about. And on Unix, in the vague sense, maybe there is a free desktop API for it, so that you can because app switchers in Unity and in GNOME Desktop and in Swordfish and everything all can switch between all of the running applications without them necessarily being all KDE apps or all GNOME apps or whatever.
Yeah. So we have to look at how Unity does this and how it works on Windows. On Windows, it's actually a little bit easier. I do know enough about Windows to know that it is. I think the API is called Task Manager, and it's available. I've only used it on .NET. But it is possible on Windows, but that is a larger implementation that we have to be more comfortable with things before we do that. So there are two issues showing up here in the build log. One of them is the usage of CF time interval, and we definitely need to replace the usages of CF time interval, which does not exist on gnustep, with NS time interval.
Yeah, so Command F, find CF time interval, replace with NS time interval.
There we go.
Bosh.
And how many did it say? How many it replaced?
4.
Oh, that's not so bad. Okay. And then also there's the process serial number stuff that came from.
So that's another Carbon thing. That is going to be your application services. Stuff.
The process serial number is from application services, and all of the CG input events are also not going to be available to us. So the feature. Basically, I think what we have to do is remove on gnustep, remove the feature that for now that checks whether you're breaking the rules of the break, which still makes it useful software. It just makes it incomplete.
Well, so I think that there probably are constants for these things in AppKit, actually.
I I would say there almost definitely is AppKit implementations of those things for catching events, because otherwise it doesn't know if you're clicking on things or touching your keyboard. So those things almost certainly exist, um, and so there's definitely porting opportunity there.
What there might not be is this thing here. Uh,
The second since last input event, yes.
yeah, so that is a carbon thing that can hook into any event. This is the time since the last input event that Windows Server on a Mac detected, rather than
Mm-hmm.
the last input event that this app detected. Uh, so this thing, I don't think, has a Cocoa equivalent. I could be wrong.
And in gnustep, if I search the gnustep organization on GitHub for input event, I get no hits.
Okay.
So I will say we're definitely going to get a lot of hits for that. But if I say input event, I get 0 hits. And if I say event, I get way too many hits to be able to make any sense of it. And so there is in, let's see here. Yeah, I don't see a useful. There is obviously an implementation of NS event, but I don't see. Oh, and then there is there is in gnustep X11 support, there is XG server event. So there is. Okay, so if we look at, if you can pull it up easily on the thing we're sharing,
Yeah.
in libsback, source X11. Do we have the source for libsback easily?
Not yet, but we can do.
Okay, let's grab that. Oh, sorry, that was me. I moused across the window. While you're checking that out, I'm going to take a 2-minute bio break. I'll be right back.
Sure. Of course, having XG server event solves this problem on X. It doesn't solve this problem on Windows. So I think what Stephen was suggesting. No, I don't have a mouse pointer. Ah, there we go. I thought I'd lost the mouse pointer completely. Is that this? So we definitely need the thing to work out whether it has got to the end of its break and exit if it has. But we can effectively on gnustep remove this feature here that if you try to use the computer during the break, resets the break timer. And you know, if we can't work out how to get an effective re-implementation of this function, which you probably can do in X, maybe you can do in Wayland, possibly can do in Windows, but they'd all be different implementations. Then we just remove that feature and move on. I can't remember what Stephen said the name of the thing. XG server event, I think he said. Right, yes, XG server event. I was hoping I'd have the open command from gnustep, but evidently not. Okay.
Okay, I am back. And I had a shower thought, but I wasn't in the shower. I was standing next to it. When I looked at before at using NSRun application, what you can do on a Mac is use NSRunning application to get the current running application, the active application, and you can store some reference to that so that you can restore it later. The reason why that will work, which you started briefly explaining, but I'm going to explain slightly more detail for the audience. If we use NSRunning application and say store, use NSRunning application, store the return value of this method call, and then later use NSRunning application and say run, call this method with this thing. When we have NSRunning application APIs that don't do anything necessarily on gnustep, they will return a nil, and then we will send a message to a nil, and it will just silently do nothing. And so it will work on both platforms. And also since this is a slightly RSI themed stream, this week when I've been up north, I've been using laptops almost exclusively, and my particular brand of RSI when I'm using laptops, because of the way that you have to turn your wrist to use a laptop keyboard when you put your hands together like this, I have pinched nerves in my wrists, and they cause my fingers to be numb and pain in my wrists, and so I have to wear these fucking things. And the pain has started today, so I found that I had packed them, and I'm able to use them. So, okay, so we're looking at XG server event, which has a bunch of clicks. There is NS integer click time. That's how long it's clicked.
My reservation here is that we are in the X11 backend, and we're probably actually using the Cairo backend.
Aha. That is possible. I think Cairo is the thing that you linked me a few weeks ago, that Cairo is now looking for a maintainer.
Oh, yes, that's true.
So, so my immediate feeling, and I'm not strongly tied to this opinion, but my immediate feeling is that we can just remove all the code around tracking input events, because that's what just resets the timer if you're being bad.
Yeah, I had that discussion basically with myself, but we let's say with the people in chat just now, and I think that is this stanza here, that this is the thing that is looking for was there an event, and is then using that calculation here. So if we just delete that, then actually it might build now, because we've got rid of all of that CG event stuff as well.
I'm pretty sure that's the only place where the CG events.
No, it's still got idle time here.
Right. We can just set idle time to something sensible. Idle time is what gets reset when you touch the keyboard or mouse. And so if we set idle time to...
Okay, so what we have to do
is... maybe we cannot.
Undo, work out... So it's the number of seconds since the last input event.
Right. So if we set NS interval idle time to some large number...
Yeah, and I'm guessing that we use that large positive number, because this... So it says... idle time in seconds is greater than the reset session timer in hours, and this is ridiculous. This is probably about the number of seconds in a week or something like that. Right. There's 86,400 seconds in a day, and we have, so that's half a day there, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 orders of magnitude above that. Okay, so it's a million. This is about 1 million days long. That's probably sufficient. It's 500,000 days long. That's probably. And
enough. So we want to just set it to some high number, so that the idle time never gets reset to 0.
Yeah.
And so if we just set idle time, that number, or maybe a bit smaller than that number, because
I'm greater than or equal to. Actually, this bit because this is now the event
Right.
calculation. So we still delete that.
Yep. Yep. There we go.
And so now we've got a value that is, and we want to not do that because that's going to. Actually, yeah, that's still going to change the behavior, though, isn't it?
That's going to only change the behavior where it resets the session timer. So the next, so that
we don't
next
want it
bit
to reset
there,
it. We don't want it to reset.
we don't
the session
ever
timer.
want it to reset. Yeah.
Okay. So and now we're done.
And so we're
because
just
now the rest of it is
Yep.
going to change the history.
We'll move on to
but
the next error.
Okay, so this is all the
Process serial number and
process
set from
manager
processor the
carbon.
right. That's the yeah. So we want that gone as well. So if you search for process serial number, and then also find the usages of the things where we're storing it, I guess.
Okay, well it sent me to here. I don't see it on the screen. Oh, there we go.
I also do not see it.
It was drawn off the bottom of the screen.
Aha, there it is. Okay. Yeah. So if we take that and delete it, and then also remove frontmost app, the variable frontmost app, we want to find the usages of that, I guess, and also this one here, set front process. So that's also gone. Right.
This bit.
Yes. Yep. So this is the. Yeah, that's where it takes the focus, where it stores all the stuff that it needs to restore. This is perfect. When we're done, if you send a diff or open a pull request, then I will have a good place to know where I need to add the NS running application stuff on the Mac version.
Nice. Okay.
Which is
yeah.
great.
I'll probably do that tomorrow, I guess, because.
That sounds good.
After so let's just check that there isn't. So there's no more process serial number frontmost app. There's no more frontmost app.
Good.
Okay, so now the code builds.
Wow.
But we haven't put the. What I didn't do was put the nib in. And I've got a feeling this project uses base localization, and I'm not sure that Gorm. Well, I know Gorm doesn't support that. I'm not sure whether PC does. But we could just put the base project the base project nib in, and then see a poorly localized / unlocalized UI if it's going to work at all.
Yes, it might just have the enlproj. I think it's just that. I'm cheating slightly and opening AntiRSI in Xcode on my Mac.
Nice.
To look at the nib and see what's in it.
Oops.
Oh, I'm sorry. I think I just moused you.
I'm going to delete these files because these are files that Project Center created. These are not your interface.
Okay. So in the nib, we have the preferences window, the main menu, a number formatter, and then the AntiRSI. Oh, the AntiRSI view is in the nib, and it is using base localization.
I wish it would actually show me the right. I wish this was actually showing me any files in its little browser.
Can we change file types to all? Is that a...
No, this is This is actually which of these columns it goes in rather than...
Right.
That's the wrong keyboard. What have I done in OBS? Apparently nothing. Also, that doesn't work. Okay, well, we can do the old-fashioned way then.
Yes. I do miss, although it still exists, but I strongly prefer this file viewer to the modern Finder on the Mac. I thought that the 3 column with
No, we can't
the
do that either.
what do they call the thing above the breadcrumb in file viewer? Do you remember the next name for that? I think it was called the shelf.
This is the shelf.
Yeah. Yeah. I miss that.
So I'm going to unilaterally, well, get annoyed by the mouse again. Ah, there we go. Right, what's it doing now? What's that?
It didn't. Is that the running program? Did it run it? I
No.
do not see a running program. Okay.
No, because I didn't hit run. I hit drag file.
Right.
Hit. I'm trying to work out what that goop is. Who knows? It hasn't added that, as far as I can see.
Nope. I also don't see it.
So what I'm going to do is, and it also hasn't changed the focus onto Project Center.
Right.
Not sure where the Project Center is running out. So I'm going to give up on Project Center. What I'm going to do is kill it because I'm getting bored of its bullshit. Yes, I do. And I am going to, due to the way I created this is your directory and this is the project folder. I'm going to copy from, I don't mean that, I mean that. Wow, I didn't realise
that is
was
a
thing. And now I'm going to edit the file in Emacs because I'm getting bored of Project Center and its nonsense. Is it resource files or resources? I forget. Ooh.
It is resource files.
Oh, I think that's what I typed.
I think you did, yeah.
That didn't do anything.
No. That also didn't grab it.
It didn't copy the resource file, so that evidently wasn't correct. Oh, and I'm using shirt, so I don't have history. Right, what I need, which I might just use this computer for, is to work out how to copy the resources into place.
I'm going to attempt to do something in TeamViewer. Nope,
Good
I'm
luck with
not.
that.
Nope. Nope. Okay. Let's see here. One amusing thing about this stream that is different from the other one
Yeah.
is that we're not reading the books at each other or reading the documentation at each other because there's very little of both.
That's not a good reason for us not to be doing it.
I didn't say it was a good thing. I said it was interesting and different.
Yeah. Oh, there are all sorts of like bits and pieces of gnustep documentation in the world, and not all of them. Sorry, all of them do not have what I need. The first window application. Let's try that.
I'm looking at the GNU make file for Project Center, and it lists the resource files and so on,
Yeah,
but it doesn't.
it is called resource files on here. So it should be AntiRSI underscore resource underscore resource single.
Oh, there it is. And in Project Center, they have equals, not plus equals, but I don't know if that's important.
Well, plus equals just means append this to whatever there is. So if it's empty, it will be
right. Okay. So if it'll append even in the case of empty, that's fine.
Yeah, and the reason for doing that, which is not used here, is you could put a preamble make file in here. This doesn't appear to use an info plist, which is interesting.
Right. It does. So changing it to resource files might actually do it. Wrong window. That's your TalkSoup running window.
Oh yeah.
There we go.
Well, that.
And it didn't go. It's compiling and it's copying, and it just says copying resources. So if we go into the app wrapper, we can see if the resource is good.
Yeah, there's a main menu nib.
There we go. All right, let's see if. I wonder if it'll load it. Okay.
Unable to find backend. That's probably because I built GUI without installing back. Yeah. Because it's because I built a new version of GUI. But luckily, I did also check out the source for back.
There we go.
Nice.
And it backend server X11 and backend graphics are Cairo, and the Cairo backend is Xlib. So
okay, so maybe that XG.
So XG server probably exists for us.
Yeah, it looks like it.
Do you need to gmake the install? Probably not.
I should do.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yes, the answer is yes.
Well, that's
Oh, that is
progress.
that's not good. Okay, and so now we'll debug the running and see what we come up with here. Current executable run.
Not much.
That is not helpful.
No.
Are we doing anything weird in main?
We should just be calling NS application main. I mean, it's a pretty standard.
Yeah, I think so. Yep. Okay. Yeah. All right. In the other project I work on, there Cocoa Fibs. There are some extra things in main that are annoying me right now.
I mean, my guess is this isn't an application problem. This is I just install gnustep by typing make a load of times, and the version of gnustep libraries that I've now got are not right problem. Which probably also means that I've overwritten all the ones that do work. So when I reboot for next week's stream, this image won't work at all.
Well, you know, these are the early stream issues that we have to work through.
Okay, so all we get there is the core dumped.
Look at this.
And that's
Above that.
That is what I've been having to alter as well.
All right. That is unfortunate.
And yeah, unhelpful.
Yeah, I think this means that we.
Well, so now I'm concerned that I may have just broken things in general. That loaded two versions of basically every class in gnustep suggests that actually the libraries are present, the system libraries and the version that I've created. Okay, so but text edit still runs, so it's not that I have fundamentally broken the gnustep installation on here. It's that our process doesn't launch.
Right. Right.
So we could come at this from a simpler place. We could, build a Hello World tool. Actually, no, I've still got the Hello World project that we created earlier in the lifetime of the stream. So if I've got this currency converter, in fact. So if I load that, admittedly I'm exposing myself to Project Center again. I won't inhale.
And that one succeeded. And so, does it launch?
But it hasn't launched either.
Right. Do you want to try it from the command line and see if it also does the core dump or whatever?
Yeah. Right.
I suspect this is a problem with the multiple versions, and that is not a nice problem.
Yeah, there's a core file there.
Yeah.
But that's useful information. Oh, I forgot I don't have history.
Capital A. You've got a capital A there on your currency converter app.
Okay.
There we go.
Yeah, so that's in the link editor. That's not in. It's not even launched start at this point.
Mm-hmm.
So we aren't getting to the point where it's trying to run any of our code.
Right.
Okay, so it's got GUI 0.29, which is and that's the version in there, which is the one that presumably that I built.
Yep.
And gnustep base, which is also the newer version.
Mm-hmm.
And a surprising number of other libraries.
Yeah, I'm sure those are all transient dependencies from
Yeah,
gnustep,
no,
I would
absolutely.
expect. Yeah.
So it looks
Mhm.
like the libraries that I created don't work, and the libraries that everybody else created do.
I think it's possible that as an off-stream activity, update the FreeBSD ports file to build the new ones and then use the FreeBSD ports, but I'm not sure if then we also have to rebuild the world.
We may
Um,
well do, but I think that in the short term, there's a
mhm.
thing where we um, turn off the NS date picker in AntiRSI, revert to the old version of the libraries, and see if that works.
Yeah, let's try that. I did out myself earlier in the stream as someone who enjoys the packaging activities, and so I think I've voluntold myself what I need to do. Um,
So I want to take that path there.
I think you can go back to the build directory and type gmake uninstall.
Oh, okay.
I
There's
think
quite a lot of stuff in. It looks like there's.
there
So it
is.
looks like. But right. This could be a problem then because there's a load of stuff in here that definitely isn't my doing. I didn't install the address
Mm-hmm.
frameworks.
Right.
Um, I didn't install like the web objects is in there. Um,
Yep.
so it could be that I've clobbered. Oh, stop doing that. Talk view, team viewer. Thank you. So it could be that I've clobbered something that was installed by the thing.
Right. So we make uninstall, and then you can uninstall and reinstall the gnustep package.
Oh yeah. So the reason I'm doing
Use
sudo minus.
gmake.
Yeah, you're right. Thank you. The reason I'm using minus E is that passes my environment to to the root shell, and gnustep relies on a load of stuff you can see scrolling past in the environment.
Right.
Right. So, like the next test is whether like text edit still works because the library was actually elsewhere on the. Okay, so no printing.
Right. Okay, but it does work. I suspect that the FreeBSD port or package installs in user local rather than user local gnustep, but I could be wrong about that.
Yeah, but it looks like
It did say not found, required by it's not
that.
finding lib gnustep base.
Yeah,
Oh shit! And TeamViewer just did a thing.
and that's
So it.
why.
Mhm.
Uh, so 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 the printing bundle is relying on this one that's here So it looks like the printing bundles didn't get uninstalled when I ran gmake uninstall on whatever installed them in the first place.
Right.
But there could be versions in the upstream in the package. So do you think it's now worth doing a package remove gnustep GUI
I do, yeah.
and then install? Okay.
Yep. You probably have to force it. Nope, it'll reinstall.
It is going to uninstall all the apps, including Project Center and Gworkspace. So I basically what I've done is I've stood on the cutlery service and then pulled the tablecloth out from underneath. In fact, it's. I wonder if there's a meta package for gnustep.
There is.
But it doesn't include all the apps. So I still need to reinstall Project Center, Gworkspace, Gorm.
Text edit. Because we've been using that for testing.
Is text edit? No, text edit isn't one of the FreeBSD packages.
Aha. Okay.
Right. Where are we? Okay, the printing things.
Same. But it's because it's not finding libgnustep base.
It's because it's not finding gnustep base 1.27.
Aha.
Oops. Oh.
Which I thought 1.27 is what it installed.
No.
Oh, not 1.26
is what it installed. So, whatever... So those bundles... there are two different versions. And probably one of them is the one from... and my guess is that the system one is the one that was installed by package, and the local one is the one I installed. You know what? Let's not scroll. Let's... So that one depends on 1.26.
Mm-hmm. And I would say it makes sense for the local one.
That one doesn't.
Right. So I bet it makes sense for anything in local to sort of take precedence. So if we go take a look at the local directory and see, it might just be possible for us to delete that.
I'm just going to delete the printing folder from here because there is one in the system folder.
Mm-hmm.
And because I'm cavalier like that. Yay! Right, text edit works.
There we go. Okay.
So my assumption is that we can now clean and remake this.
Mm-hmm.
That's
finding stuff from local as well.
Yeah, which it shouldn't, because gmake uninstall gnustep GUI should have uninstalled its version of the headers.
It definitely should have, yes.
All right, well, bye-bye that folder. I bet this breaks.
It's now building and does not like...
It can't find NSObject.
I wonder if the linker is still finding something in local library.
Yeah.
I would assume that everything in that local directory is just the locally built stuff.
Yeah, but not
And
all
so
of the
it's
locally built stuff is stuff that I've built. Some of it is stuff that the live step script built.
okay, so we can't just nuke
Can't
that.
just blow
So
that
I think
away.
I think your first thought a while ago that the remaking things clobbered the old stuff is accurate and
Yeah.
is fucking with us.
So,
So we need to spend a little bit more time on the environment, I guess.
yeah.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, I want to see what. So it looks like it is, putting. Where are we? My home folder, gnustep library, and the local one and the system one. So,
Mhm.
uh, local gnustep, local libraries. Now, is there an objc runtime in there? No, there isn't. So there's still a gnustep GUI in there.
There is. So the gmake uninstall did not work.
No.
What a pain in the ass.
Well, you know what? I'm just going to remove that. Not that, but that.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think that's going to fix anything.
Mm-hmm. Hmm.
So I'm kind of at a loss now because that undefined symbol NS object should be in. Right. What? Okay. So what we need. Let me back up and then explain what I think is missing, and then explain what I want to look at next. So, NS Mutable Dictionary is definitely in Foundation. NS Use of
Mm-hmm.
Defaults is definitely in Foundation. NS Object is probably in Foundation, but it might be in the Objective-C runtime library. It definitely is on a Mac because they needed to put it in there so that Arc knew how retain and release worked. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so this suggests that it isn't finding that the link isn't actually linking gnustep base, and so that makes me want to look at
Right.
the and I can't remember what the argument is.
Base libs.
Base libs exactly.
Now you did just remove the lib gnustep GUI from local, but not lib gnustep base. I suspect there's a lib gnustep base in local.
I don't think there was. I think that was why I
Okay.
didn't do it. But it's worth checking. No.
Nope. Okay.
So, interestingly, that base libs doesn't actually include gnustep base, but
That is interesting.
it doesn't include -l gnustep base, which I would expect it would,
Mm-hmm.
because the GUI libs does include l gnustep GUI. So, and that should include gnustep base as well. So I
Mm-hmm.
think that my gnustep-make is misconfigured now.
Yeah.
Okay, that didn't help as
What
much.
about LD config?
Oh.
I'm not sure if we need to rerun that after removing a bunch of shit.
Oh.
There we go. Nope.
That didn't change anything.
Oh well. A shot and a miss.
But my feeling is that gnustep config should have the correct flag.
Mm-hmm.
If I go back to one of these make files here. No, okay, this doesn't supply any custom like linker flags or anything.
No, it just shells to gnustep config.
So I think that what the changes that we've made have stopped gnustep-make from adding the -l gnustep base line,
Right.
which I could check by rerunning. Oh no! Stop doing that, you stupid! Ah!
Oof.
I don't like computers anymore.
They are frustrating.
Yeah. Okay. It hasn't told us what the linker command is, but right. So I reckon if I did something like
You have to use. Oh, GCC will be Clang, right?
well, whatever.
Oh, okay.
I don't
There we
mind
go.
for the moment.
Right.
So if I do gnustep config GUI libs, was it GUI libs? Something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Then that should not work. But if I do that with -l gnustep base, then it does work.
Right.
And like that won't have an info plist, so it won't have a main menu nib, so it won't actually work. But the executable runs. So
Right.
we are correct that the problem is gnustep-make should be telling us to link gnustep base and isn't.
Right.
So something in this lot, and I can never remember how any of this stuff is put together, is is now misconfigured, which may well be my fault because of all the shenanigans I was doing earlier.
Yeah, I think getting two versions in there at the same time was a mistake, unfortunately.
Oh, I suppose I can just remove the leading minus.
Mm-hmm.
So nothing.
I suspect it's probably using gnustep config, which does not contain base for some reason.
Yeah, but gnustep config has to be getting this information from somewhere, right? There we go. Okay,
Right.
so it's
Yep.
in.
Is there a base.make in that folder? Did that get deleted when we removed base, maybe?
Yeah, but then I installed the package again over the top.
Right. So it should be there.
Okay, so that something in here is going to... One of these many .make files is going to be the thing that should tell it to link. And it is not that.
Aha. You were looking in... Oh, no, you were looking recursively, so it should have found it.
This is such a convoluted collection of make files.
Mm-hmm.
What I might be better off doing, and it has gone past 9, so we might want to call it here and then leave me to work this out. Is see where gnustep config gets. Oh, there we go. It is a shell script.
Mm-hmm.
So why don't we? See what it does.
Empty make.
So empty.make has a target print gnustep-make base libs. Let's see what that does.
Okay.
Print gnustep. Oh. So probably common rather than rules.
I would say.
Maybe it is rules. Yes. Okay.
There it is.
Right. So it should be probably FND libs, which is going to be the foundation library, because objc libs contains objc libs but doesn't contain FND libs, and GUI libs contains fund libs and GUI libs and auxiliary GUI libs. So I think it's this FND libs. Now all we got to do is work out what the hell sets that. And whatever it is isn't in this file, obviously. So what does this file include? Master rules.make. Which doesn't contain anything. Well, maybe it's not that far then. This is not a lot of fun.
Instance rules.
Yeah.
There's the foundation lib.
Oh, well, you know what I could do is I could grep for that.
There is library combo make, line 122.
Oh yeah.
Is an assignment.
Oh, shit.
There we go.
Yeah, determine which runtime foundation GUI. Well done. So
There it is there.
yeah.
Or something. gnustep base.
So what we want is the thing that actually sets fund lib. So that's the one for next. That's the one for Sun. That is the one for Apple. This is the one for Helga Hess's lib foundation. We don't care about that. And then that's it.
There was one for GNU up top. The first one, I think, said GNU. There, that one at the top of the screen. Yeah.
And what it doesn't do is actually set fund libs. This is not the way to fix this because I'm now just writing into a file that's in system. But oh, where am I? There we go.
There we go. And there it is.
Okay, so
you hosed our environment, patched it back together.
with baling
All right.
string and sealing wax. Please like and subscribe.
And on that bombshell.
Marvellous. Okay, so have we made any I suppose we've learned a lot about how gnustep-make is put together. We've learned how not to update your gnustep environment. We've learned that all of the packages on FreeBSD could do with the maintainer, and that people in the chat should get in touch with the gnustep packaging team, the FreeBSD ports team, and help out with that if they are so interested. We've learned how easy it is to give me money. If you like watching us fail at writing software, then we're doing it again tomorrow at 1900 UTC over at the DOS Amigans Twitch stream. I doubt anyone's watching now. I wouldn't watch this.
That got frustrating towards the end. That was that was incredibly frustrating towards the end. But with a little bit of attention paid to our, I mean, we did spend several streams, sort of doing care and feeding of the Amiga stuff, and I think, so I think that it's totally reasonable that we're going to have these sort of teething problems in the beginning. And GNU-step is a very large and complicated project.
No, that is true.
So,
And I think like actually, yeah. Why don't we? Just because we didn't get particularly far, and it's a little bit frustrating, and I can't control my mouse anymore. Yeah, I'm not trying to triple mouse 11. Um, where even is my pointer? Okay, I literally can't mouse on this computer anymore. What I was going to say was, why don't I run the AntiRSI app, because we should be able to build and run it now.
mm-hmm.
But I can't use the computer anymore because of TeamViewer.
So that's as good a place as any, I guess.
Oh, right.
We would run into ns-datepicker on that version of GNU-step.
Yes. Okay, so the next thing for us to do is to work out how to remove ns-datepicker temporarily, and then work out how to update GNU-step. But next week we're not going to do that. Next week we are going to do a little special on GNU-step on Windows.
That sounds good.
Yeah. Right. Okay.
I look forward to the cursing about setting up GNU-step on Windows.
I'll do the cursing and the setup before we start. I'll break it half an hour into the stream.
There we go.
Nice. Okay. Thanks very much, everyone. We will be
you,
back
everyone.
again same time next week.
See you next.